First, we just a recap, like I always do. So far, we've been studying about the Canvas app on Power App. We've done a lot of designs, and now what we want to do is for us to be able to make it more responsive to user input, right? Like just like we have our Power Apps, we were able to build this, but at the end of the day, was this no? Okay, we're able to build this. So at the end of the day, building this is not just enough, right? We need to be able to know when someone has a ticket and when someone tries to update or resolve the ticket, right? And also, these are all, it does the same thing. Some of the response or the trigger will be based on SharePoint list, like when a particular item is created. Some of the automation will be based on when a particular button is created, right? So that's what we'll be doing today, because that's the whole point of building a complete solution. It's not about making something beautiful. People need to be able to use it. So just like we always say, for you to enjoy the integration, or for us to have a complete system, we need to work on all of this. And just like I explained, we have the Canvas app, which is anything that has to do with the user experience, like interfacing with user, is where we have the Power Apps coming in, the Power Virtual Agent, the Power BI, Teams, and all of those things. But when it's time for automation, if you look at the middle, you discover that this middle is actually like a communication between the user interface, right? And also the data services. It means there are data services, which looks like the back end, and then we have the what's the name? The automation process, which is what connects the user experience and the data. So we have Power Automate, and if you look at all the components there, you see that most of it is automation. We're learning every day, and I knew Power Automate, but not too long I got to know that even you can actually have desktop automation, where if normally your day-to-day activity will require you to like go to maybe for you to copy a file, put in another file, maybe extend it, edit it, and save it in a folder on your desktop. I'm not even talking about the internet. Only for me to discover that you can actually write an automation that can also do things automatically on your desktop. So if your day-to-day work requires that you take a file, you open it on Word document, you edit it, you save it in another folder, and then you mail it to someone. You see all these things that happen within your desktop, you can actually write an automation that will definitely do it. That's the Power Automation for desktop, right? We also have Power Automate flows. We have AI builders. We have Microsoft approvals, of course, a lot of approvals and all that for different workflows within the business. And also we have the Power Automate business process flow, right? That's what we'll be working more on. And now we really want to know in Power Automate. Even if you browse, you always see what Power Automate is. It's just a powerful workflow automation tool developed by Microsoft. It's Microsoft that owns it, and the reason for it is for people to be able to work. It's not because they did it for you to work with the applications alone, but you can also use it to work with different connectors. I'm going to show you. It means that there are some softwares you use that are not built with Microsoft. You can actually use Automate to automate it as long as there's a connector. Like if you want to build a form where when the form is filled or responded to, you want an SMS to be sent to the owners, or you want an SMS to be sent to a particular set of people, all you need to do is to connect it to an SMS connector, right? Through the premium connectors, and then whatever you build on your mail, whatever you ask it to do, it will actually respond to it. So the power of why use Power Automate: efficiency and time saving, of course. Like I myself, if you send me an email for me to do a task, I know the particular keywords because I know the kind of business, I know the kind of responsibilities that is being assigned to me. So if you write me an email that has those keywords, automatically I would get a different response, right? If you send me an email, hello, hi, how are you? Were you in the meeting and all of those things? I don't get any alert because I don't really care about those kind of, I don't need to escalate that. But if I hear things like, so please, could you help me do this? Once my email sees that line, it immediately draws my attention to something. So I could make it look like send me a mobile notification, or I could also make it look like it can create a to-do list, a to-do and task for me, or it can create anything. So that's what Power Automate can do. It can also help in error reduction. Trust me, this, if you use Power Automate very well, you see that once everything is automated, you've set everything the way it wants. You don't even have human error, right? So even if the sender is having a bad day, or that day you're having a bad day and you want to respond, you can't, because you've already set your automate to give good responses and all that. So these are just little things you can do. Cross-application integration, just like I explained to you, you can use it with different kinds of applications. And process standardization, of course, and data handling and transformation. So understanding the user interface, if you look at, I'll use the real stuff. I'll share my screen. Sorry, I'll switch screen. Okay, so for the interface, this is Power Automate. For you to be able to access Automate, you go to make.automate.com. So make.powerautomate.com, and then you see the interface. Now, this is not the only way you can actually access Power Automate, right? You can actually access it directly from your list as well, right? So you can also access it from your Power app, right? As you're building it and you want to integrate, I'll show you all of those things. So for now, this is your the interface, the landing for the home page of your Automate. Here is your search button. You can search for any kind of templates, or you can also describe it to design it. So this is additional features, but you can search for any kind of template. And now, because of the power of AI, everything is almost automated. Like you can actually write, or you can actually tell Automate here, this platform, on what not all organizations have this face, right? This is like the most recent. So if you describe something, it can be able to generate a template for you. It's a good thing, at least it saves time. But you can see, you can start a new automation by clicking on create, and then when you're starting your create, you'll see different templates. So you can have automated cloud flow, you can have instant cloud flow, automated cloud flow. Like I've made some systems where it sends reminder to the users, right, based on something that is required from them. So the automated is actually something I set for it to remind people for that particular task every Monday. So imagine you're dealing with 1,000 staff and you need to remind them to do a particular task. Your automation will you just do your automation, send everything, write everything, and then it will remind them when it's time. So that's sorry, for the time on is the scheduled, but for automated cloud flow is when you actually, like our Powerapps button, all I did is when a particular task is being created, it should happen, right? So it's not like something that is happening instantly. It's something that I've already designed that, okay, when a particular thing like that is, once a particular event is happening, please do this. For the instant cloud flow is that when you write, it's happening instantly, right? For the scheduled one, it's the one that you can write the automate, but you tell it to run on a particular time, either weekly, monthly, or you set the date, set the recurrence and all that. You can describe it to design it. All of these things are just quick stuff, and you can actually write desktop flow, which is automate processes on your desktop environment, and process mining. That's in terms of data and all that. So if we want to start from a template, you can click templates here, and then you see different template. It's very important because I do have a lot of questions that comes in with, I want to do this, can I be able to do this? And I'll tell them that, oh, see, if you go to the template, you can see template for everything, right? You can see template. If you look at our first template, you see that posts MSN weather updates to Yammer group every day. Yammer group is one of the applications in Microsoft Office and it looks like a social platform, right? But now you want to post like every day, depending on the weather. If the weather is hot, you want it to be posted to that group so that the site workers will know that it's not a good weather to work, right? You can also save things that comes into your email attachment to OneDrive. It means once you have some kind of email, there are some job tags that require people to send receipt or whatever it is, you can save it in a OneDrive. This is just one of so many flows. You can choose a template, you can choose, you can filter it to topics. You can say shared with me. Shared with me is actually automation that you and someone in your organization shares, right? So these are where you see automations that are shared with you. These ones are kind of remote work. These are automation that actually encourages remote work and all that, depending on what you want. However, you must not create what's the name, automation or Power Automate based on template. You can actually build your own, right? The thing is that when you build your own, when someone tells you that this is the kind of automation I want, you need to understand what they want, and then you draft a plan on what you need, and then you try to make it. So that's a bit it's not easy compared to this one that everything is just there, right? So that's just the template. You can always learn. Microsoft will always allow you to learn more and how to use all of the applications. So it's not new for us to see learn. You can also see your flows, right? So in this environment, I've written just 3 flows. One is support ticket alert. One is when an alert is assigned. And one is the project tax. That's the recent one. I'll share this later. Approve our solutions, AI models, desktop flow activities, and this will always show you the other Power Platform. So this is just all about assessing Power Automate, right? When you hear people, the truth is that it's easier to get a job if you know how to do automation. You can actually get a good job in 6-figure if all you know is just automation. Just tell yourself automation engineer. It means you can automate anything, right? So if you know Power Automate and other third-party automation tools, you'll be good. So back to my slide. I'll definitely show us how we do the integration and how to make your Power Apps responsive and to buttons and all that. So understanding, of course, dashboard, navigation, we've done all this. And connectors is, okay, I'll show you. So connectors enable integration of various applications and services, allowing you to create seamless automated flow. Connectors are like bridge between Power Automate and other application, services, and data source. They facilitate the exchange of data and execution of action between different systems. So for example, if I want to write, let me say, I want to create a flow and I want to use something like, of course, we know that, let me say Jira. Jira is not owned by Microsoft, at least we know that, right? But we can actually create automation based on when there is a Jira issue. If you look, you will see that you can create Jira issue with Microsoft responses. So let me click, or let me say, create a new issue in Jira when an item is added to a SharePoint Automate. So let me click on this. I don't have any application. I don't have any connection or any subscription with Jira. I'm just using this to illustrate what it can do. And for you to use some connectors, you actually need premium connectors. Now you can see that SharePoint can actually communicate with Jira. And it's not because of their friends, right? It's just because Jira has their own custom connectors that they have made so that we can actually use it in Power Automate, and then we can actually communicate, right? So there are different types of applications that you can integrate. And once you start, you see that if you look at the screen, you'll see that we have SharePoint permission, requesting you for your permission, but permission is already there. But it's also requiring you to sign into Jira. It means it's trying to understand that you have an account with Jira and you also have an account with SharePoint, and then you want it to work together. So that's what premium connectors are. Premium connectors will let you know the authentication type. of course, APIs will always be the what you use to communicate between applications and all that. And then you put your username and you put your API token. This is quite advanced, but this is just how you can work. So when you're being asked, I want my SharePoint list to communicate with a third-party application, all you need to do is to ask, what application is this? If they tell you what the application is, you can quickly come and see if there's a connector for it, right? Like someone recently asked me if they're trying to build something for the bank and they are looking for a particular, the bank have access to, of course, some APIs, right? So they want to know if Powerapps can be able to communicate with such a thing. And all I knew, when I listened to him and I looked at what he wants, and I said, yes, it's possible. Because actually, that stuff he wants the bank to be able to check for customers, there's an API for it. So imagine using Powerapps to build a very sophisticated application for a bank, right? So this is actually where connectors come to work. Even if you don't know in depth for now, because you're still trying to understand this entire stuff, it's very important for you to know what is possible and what is not possible. So if someone say, can you build this for me? Can you make an automation to be able to work, communicate with my software? I'm using softwares like that is not even connected to Microsoft. Can I communicate? Can I integrate it? I'll say yes. Just look at the stuff and know if the connector is available. And one other advanced thing is that even if the connector is not even available, if you have the right, I don't know the word to use, but if you're offered a good amount to make this job done, you can actually build your own custom connector, right? So Microsoft allows you to build your own custom connector. You can build a particular application. I can build a new application like this and write a REST API for it so that apps like this can be able to communicate with it. And then I can build a custom connector and put it and use it just for my Canvas app, right? So all I'm trying to say is that with Automate and with the power of connectors, you can be able to work with any kind of application. Imagine building an app or using a third-party app and communicating with a Powerapps that you built. Very, very possible. And that's the interesting part of automation. So basically, we have different types of the custom and the Microsoft connectors. Sorry, I have to go this far. I have to go this way because of the recorded videos, right? And we have variables, right? You can work with string variables, integer, Boolean, and all that. So in our Power Automate, I'll show us one of this one. So for my flow, for the support tickets, there's no really advanced stuff here. Okay, so let me use this one. I don't want to edit in the new designer, just the next normal one. Okay. So this is one automate that I had to link. I had to make this so when a particular task is created in this app, so when a particular task is created in this app, all it does is it will trigger the Power Automate that I've written for it. So it means there are different types of, this is actually the automate. There are different types of variables it should accept. That's the more reason I'm using this particular app. So once you play this and you're trying to create from the tags, it's the same support system app we've been building, nothing special, just a little twist because this one has something else. So if I click on this, just to explain this, I have to go this far. I'll just do this. I'm not sending this. Okay, so now the button is off. So now if you look at this, submit your tax, whatever, behind this button, there's actually, I'll show you this ones too as well. So there's actually the new project tax.run, which is trying to capture this automation flow. And this automation flow actually captures things that has to do with text, email, and all of those stuff, right? So back to our automate. if you look at the automates, the Power Apps actually takes in text, email, another text for description, another file name, and also attachment, which is file type. And there are different file type, right? You can also declare different types of, you can also, let me see, not instant, automated cloud flow. Okay, so while it's loading, let me say when a new response is submitted, no, when a file is created, when an item is created or modified. Okay, I can take this. I just want us to see how we can actually, I actually do not want this new design. I don't know this stuff. This new design, I just got to see it this week. Well, it's the same thing anyway. For invalid parameters, this would definitely want me to connect. And the SharePoint list I'm trying to connect will be, let me say, ticketing system. And the error here is done. So I'll close it. It should be the same thing. Now I'm going to add an action. If I want to add an action, this is really beautiful. So for me to add an action, I'm going to choose on what kind of action do I want. I can say, okay, when an item is created, maybe send me an email, Outlook, email. Okay, so it could say send an email notification or Office Outlook or whatever it is. So there are also external applications or connectors. So I'll just choose this Outlook, and I can say get mail tips for the email, send email with options, or just get emails and all of those things. Let me say send emails with option. So this is actually an email. I can now start with, the next thing is that I can start with variable. So in this, I can actually initialize a variable, and I can say, okay, the particular variable, I'll declare what I want the variable to be. If I want it to be the name of the variable, I can say whatever it is. Let me say sample. And now I can determine the type of variable. It's either a Boolean, which is yes or no, integer, which is normally digits, float with decimal places, string, text, object, array, right? So this is actually how you can set variables in your Power App. So you can look at what you want. If you want a string, like I can initialize a variable that will say that the person who created the list should be name of the list or name of user sending request, and I can say it's a string, and then I can say string, and then I can now put in the value. If it's something that is going to be dynamic, I'll set that up. But back to what we have, we actually have the different types of connectors. I've scrolled to, yeah, integer, Boolean, and arrays, right? Then we have, you can concatenate, which is like adding two texts together. We have that in a lot of our Power Platform. In our Power Apps, we have like where you can add different words together to make one. And also we can actually perform addition even in what's the name, Power Automate. Those things, we really don't need it much, except you're building an app that, or you're trying to write on automation that will be able to calculate stuff, right? So moving too fast because I'm trying not to exceed our time. So now, in our Power Automation, if we're going to be linking it with our Power Apps, I had to do it this way because it's much easier to compare and understand, right? So in our Power Platform, like this particular page, it's the same page I shared with you on how tax is supposed to be assigned, right? So for you to be able to make this work effectively, for me, for some people, they could just write the automation. But for me, I actually set variables, and so I can call on the variables, right, to be able to use them in my Power Automate. So that's what I was able to do in this part. For example, this one, Yeah, this one. This particular one, once you create a task, it doesn't care any button you click. Once you create, we just quickly get the response from the automation. So now, how do we really achieve this? Is you come to your automate, which is this one, and then you create an automate for that particular app that I just showed you. The easiest way to set an automation is just for you to create. Once a particular what's the name list is created, I'll say when an item is created, when an item okay, when an item is modified, when an item is blah 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 added and all that, but I want start and not approval. When an item in SharePoint list is modified, send an email. That's not what I want. When an existing SharePoint list item is modified, that is not what I want. It means I needed this for something else in a situation where my list actually calculates time. If a task is delayed, it will definitely change to yes, delayed, and then an automation will start. That's the trick. Then when a new item is added in SharePoint, this is actually what I want, right? So I'm going to click this, and this is the first method before I go deep into this direct one. So all I'm doing is, when we create our what's the name, our SharePoint, our Power Canvas app. I don't like this interface, but I'll still use it. All right. So when you create a particular list on our Power Platform, what I just want is an email to be sent to the person that created it, and an email to be sent to whom will take care of that particular list, right? So I'll invalid parameter. I would specify the list. If it's a document library, you specify the documents, right? So for now, it's a SharePoint list, and the SharePoint list is sitting in the site. Today is not for SharePoint, but if you're using SharePoint list, all SharePoint list is attached to a SharePoint site. So you need to determine the SharePoint site, which is, for me, it's the Powerapps project, because I have a sub site that does this project in MEQuest. And then the next thing is, what list are you actually talking about? And the next thing is that it's going to list all the very available lists. And you see that we have different lists based on different applications. I've done different lists. So, but all I need now is ticketing system, right? So I don't know the list you're using, but if you're using list or Excel or whatever it is, you can actually write an automation. When a new line is added to Excel, this should actually happen. And then the next thing is that I'm done with this. I don't want more parameters. I just want when a particular item is created, right? So for advanced, you can actually set time zones, because sometimes you really don't care what's happening. You want to maybe add more validation to it. But for now, once a ticket is created, I don't want to do too much. I just want to send an email. Send an email. Sorry, my mouse is a bit far. Yeah, my keypad. Okay. So all I need is for you to send an email, right? I'll choose to send an email. Now, I'm going to use, there are different versions of email, but for me, all I need now is to use this send an email option. Now, from this email, I'm going to determine what are the parameters I want to send, right? So whenever you use my app and you create something new, it will send the email to, I want to determine who should receive this email. And then I could say expressions or enter a data from previous steps. So I would go with expressions. And then with expressions, I should go created by. Dynamic content created by. So now on the for functions, let me use this to also teach you this. For functions, these are actually expressions that you write yourself, and then there are different expressions that will help you determine how to get your values, right? So you can write maybe today's date. You can write today. If I want to get today, if it's a date, I can say today bracket open close, right, dot now. So it can actually take the current date and time. So those are expressions that you write. But for dynamic content is that it's going to capture your lists or your document library or your data source, whatever it is, Dataverse or whatever it is, and it's going to bring the component from that particular app or whatever you're trying to write and automate for. So in my case, I'm actually writing a dynamic content. I'm taking a dynamic content from the list, right? So when an item is created, the dynamic content I want first should be, let me say, created by. Yeah, created by. So created is when this item, in short, I don't need to go this far. When you start experiencing these things, you read, and then you understand different explanation. At least Automate is trying to make everyone on board faster, right? So I want this email to be sent to who created it, right? So there is the created by, there's the created by email. Of course, a people column or a person column in SharePoint listings, the person's name, the email, their department, and so many properties, like so many properties that is under them. So all I need is that the person that created it by email actually wants to use that. And then I can add this, and then it can tell me created by email. So whoever created the list will receive an email. I can write the subject. What do I want the subject to be? I can say your support received. I can say support received, and then I can begin to write the body of the letter. I can also add different dynamic contents here, right? I can enter my normal, what's the name, expression that I want. I can choose functions or dynamic, and I can start writing different content here. It's much easier if I show you one of the automation that is controlling one of the app that I recently created during our classes. So under the flow, you just see the body of my message. So now you can be able to write your body. You can also set other advanced stuff to see if you're going to copy your email to someone or not. I'm just saying that this is actually beautiful because it allows you to see code view, testing, and so many things. The previous one wasn't this way. So for this support tickets, mailing alerts, I use the normal view, not the one with designer. So this will just show you a sample of my email. So I can write anything I want. When you actually signed up for this our program, you see a beautiful email that has buttons and different things, right? That was actually done with Power Automate because we had to set it. We also even have to write in a way that it reminds you so time, right? So that's the power of Automate. That's just a simple thing it can do. So you see that we have it created by email. I have the subject, I had a little good because that's how I want it. And then I have the body of my email. So I have the hello and I put the created by display name. It means anyone that created the list, it should capture the display name. It should bring it here. It should now tell me that this email is to confirm that your support ticket has been registered into our system. Big grammar. Below are the details. Trust me, people really want to see acknowledges like this. So, and then we have the dates. I have the created by date. So I pick the date it was created and the title, the description, the priority, the category. And then I went forward to say, please be informed that it will take approximately 2 days to get responses based on the category your support falls under. Feel free to contact IT support if you have questions prior to this ticket. So that's just the format, right, of the email. If you're deep into designs, you discover that there are different ways to write different templates as long as you understand basic HTML, but that's not what we're covering. So with this, I've been able to tell you one of the steps, which is the easiest way to send email from your app. Forget about the app, work with the list, right? This is the first way. The second way is for us to be able to write our, which of the app am I, not this one, I think of, for us to be able to write and automate based on the button. It's easy for me on some cases because I need to do some, maybe some coding that should understand a particular is actually what I'm looking for on this screen. Too much screens. Okay, so in my case, all I've done is that there's a confirmation button, but I want this button, when you click on it, it can now send an email. So in that case, I need to use the function called the new project tags.run. If you want to add a new automation to your Power Apps, you click on this button. If you see the automate button there by the side, right? And then you can see your flows. You can also add a new flow. And when you click add, it will prompt you on creating a new flow, and you can start the same process I use in creating this other flow that I showed you. You can put the flow name, and then you can start. And the beauty of doing your flows from your application is that it can easily understand that this is actually a flow that will work with Power Apps. So you don't need to start looking for Power Apps button to do whatever you have. So this is a default template. You can see that it can tell you if you want to add an item to SharePoint and send an email. Is that what your Power Automate does? Yes, you can actually write an automation that does this. You can write an automation from this your Power App that's going to send approval flows. Trust me, there are different apps that you can build and need to go through department to department. Is it that you just want to notify your users on Teams? There are so many templates. When you spend more time with the app, the password that we've given to you, you can always explore more things, right? And then you use the function run, the new project tags, which is the name of the automate and .run, and then you begin to call. When you start doing this, you see that it's going to tell you the particular item it requires from you, and then you fill it up, right? You fill it up with your title. These things are actually variables. You already know how we set our variables, where I say set tax title equals to this. So it's going to capture the tax title, and then it will keep it there on the what will I even call it, on section. It knows that particular name, and then when you start providing the information that your Power Automate will use, this is where it will fetch in. And this is for attachment. This is advanced, but just focus on this. You can write your first one. I'm ready to review them with you. I already review a lot of apps too with individual people, especially the ones that like being private. But you can start something and review together. And at the end of the day, I want to submit my form. I can submit, I can reset. The rest things is just to close container, open container, and then to notify someone that here a new task has been added and confirmation and notification has been sent. So this is the second way of which you can actually connect Power Automate to your Canvas app. And the next one, back to our slide. All right, so what we've done, we did the first one because an observation was a bit more advanced, but the first one is how to at least create, what's the name? Create an alert or email. You can also create an email that is going to send to maybe the manager of that particular person that created it. So those are just things you explore. These are not things we can finish within this short time, right? And then we have, of course, the method was you go to Power Automate. When you write that, you create a flow and then you choose the flow. So the flow I use there is just a Power Automate that sends an email and also sends a mobile notification on my phone. So this is actually what the advanced looks like. Once you say Power Automate, you need to tell what are the what's the name, values you need. So once you tell it that these are the values I need, and I'm going to use it in my app, on your Power Automate, it will request for those values, right? These are actually the values and it's attached to this button. And when it's done, we have a notify alert that notifies the user, and then it notifies for 5 seconds. So the other one is the one I showed us, where you can actually send a trigger from your data source itself, which in this case is SharePoint, right? So send an email when a new item is created in SharePoint, and then the next thing is send an email when the new item is created in SharePoint, and then you make your connection. You make your connection to SharePoint. If you look at this one, you make your connection to SharePoint and also to Outlook, because it has to use your own Outlook to send an email to anyone, right? So even if the person is using Gmail, it doesn't matter. It will just send the email from your Outlook. And this is what it looks like when you start the process. You put in your the person that should receive the email, the subject, right? And then you can always use different kind of flows from your templates. So also we have error handling. Trust me, it's because these are things that I've done before. So it's not new. When I'm doing a new automate, I see a lot of errors and I'm not even scared about it because there are a lot of things that change every day. So when you start, you definitely see errors. I won't even lie to you. You'll see that your flows will not run, and then you're going to see your flows error when you I want to show you where you can see your errors. So if you're on your flow, I'll use this one. If you're on your flows like this, you're going to see, you come back to your flow, you're going to see all the activities about this flow, and you're going to see the status of all your runs. Like this is the most recent, right? So if you check all runs, you see all your runs here. If you have errors, I need the ones that have errors. But if the ones that have errors, you're going to see the errors and you can be able to determine how you want to solve it. And the beauty about the errors is that it will definitely tell you, what you're doing right and what you're not doing right, right? Let me see if this one have errors. So all of it is succeeded. I'm looking for, funny enough, I don't have errors on this system, but most of the very advanced stuff, imagine building an automate that communicated pattern, you will see errors. So you should be able to view, when you see the flows and it has error, you click on the flow and then it will tell you the different categories, what went through, like you see good, bad, and all of those things. So it tells you actually what was sent. You can actually see the output. You can download the output. You can show the raw input, right? And then you can see that this is actually what happens, right? At the back. So if there was error, you definitely see where the error happened, and that's when you start debugging. So error handling is very important. You identify the errors. Debugging tools are there for you to use. You can check the flow details. You can check the error messages and details for you to know where the errors are. If you don't try something yourself, that's the beauty of Power Automate and all this power platform. You don't just tell people you can do it, you have to show them. So sometimes the best way for you to know these things is for you to try it by yourself and see where you have your errors. You can also review expressions and conditions. Permissions and credentials can also cause error. Let me tell you, if you're going to be building a Power Automate that you want someone else to use and that person does not have access to your tenants, it will not communicate, and you begin to wonder. Just because you can build automation does not mean you could just add anybody to your automate, right? You need to also check their permission level, right, for them to be able to use. And then you can also retry failed runs, right? Maybe next class I'll maybe touch a bit on this part. Maybe I'll look for a flow and I'll make errors so that we can debug together. So best practices and tips when working with Microsoft Power Automate. It's important to follow best practices and tips to ensure that your automated workflows are efficient, reliable, and maintainable. Here are a few basic tips you can apply when working with Power Automate. Clear naming conventions, documentation, test environments, version controls. Of course, you can go to different versions and then switch between the best versions. So go to previous ones and all that. And you can use comments and labeling. So with this, we've come, at least for the level that we're training, which is the basic level. It's enough information for us to move forward with. So with this, I think I'm done with this class.